Hi, everyone. It's Jamie Jill right here at Madlet Musings, and I have one of my favorite recurring guests on the show. I have Suzanne Woods Fisher. Hi, Suzanne.
Hello. And then I just laughing, thinking to myself as a recurring guest, it sounds like a cold or something. No.
No, it's not. It's like much better than a cold. It's like a recurring cup of warm, cozy coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, like recurring guests are good. That means every
Yes.
time you're on here, there's a new book, and we get to talk again, which that's the best part to me, is we get to talk again.
Same.
So, but you have another book out and it's called Love on a Whim.
Yes. And this is the third in the Cape Cod Creamery
Hmm.
series. It's the wrap up, which
Hmm.
is easy to do. I think series are actually really difficult. The second one can be challenging to keep it from sagging, too much
Hmm.
of the backstory, too much late setting things up front
Hmm.
to by the third book. And then, in comes a third book, and you really want it to kind of wrap up well. And so it's challenging. I think it's
Yeah.
really to keep someone's interest going all the way to the end, and enough kind of secondary characters come to the forefront and all that. But I am so pleased with it. I feel like it is really a wonderful ending to the series where people are going to feel so satisfied, just that good feeling.
I love
Everybody,
that.
the ending for all, but I won't tell you how.
Well, no, don't, because we don't want spoilers, but I love it though, because I mean, we've talked about both books, book one and book two, and now you're here for book three. And was it the last book that was all about ice cream?
The whole thing is ice cream, the whole
The whole
series.
thing was ice cream. I have seriously tasted that book in my dreams. Like I have like woken up and gone, I want to go there and eat more ice cream.
If you saw the covers, they are just beautiful.
They
They're
are.
photography, they're not illustrations, but they are so mouth-watering. And
Hmm.
it's actually a wedding cake because
Okay.
there's a wedding that predominates this book. It really is like a character in itself in the whole
Hmm.
story. And inside the wedding cake is ice cream. So
Oh my goodness.
the
That's
wedding
genius.
occurs on the 4th of July on Cape Cod during a massive heat wave, which is not unusual.
Oh,
How to get how to keep that
yeah.
ice from melting, is part of the problem, but it's really a fun
Hmm.
story. It's actually a young woman. It begins with a bang where a young woman named Bryn wakes up in Las Vegas,
Okay.
realizing she has just married a man she's known less than 24 hours, and she panics.
Yeah.
She is by nature, her day job is a civil engineer. This is not typical of her at all.
Mm-mm.
And she wakes up so terrified, she just bolts. She leaves him in the hotel room sound asleep. She doesn't leave any information. She is just out of there and ends up on Cape Cod to be with her friend, her best friend, who
Okay.
owns the ice cream shop, where she doesn't know what else to do other than like, somebody help me. I got to figure this out. And
Oh my goodness.
chapter one, that's where we start going. And the fun thing about the story is that the whole book is, I think, about instinct. It's really
Mm.
your gut instinct. So the question in the book, and this is what I will leave prospective readers with,
Hmm.
did Bryn listen to her instincts when she married him, or did she listen to them when she bolted?
Oh my goodness. That is not a small question.
Well, you'll find out. Well, as the book carries on, you'll find more and more.
We'll
You
find out.
unpack that a lot. But
Oh man, that's good.
the whole thing about instinct, I think, is so interesting to studying, especially women's instincts.
Yeah.
And as people of faith, I believe
Hmm.
access to great God's wisdom, which
Right.
often comes in if we're listening well, we're
Right.
listening to those hunches. Not always listening because God's voice comes in a whisper. So no wonder
Hmm.
we don't listen well. It's, a lot of women, I think, are taught to override their instincts. They're
Yeah.
taught to, be polite, be nice, be this. And they kind of aren't listening to that little like back of the hair moment or something like.
Hmm.
I'm talking a lot. If you want to interrupt, you go right ahead.
No,
But
you're good. I'm soaking it in. Keep going. This is good.
there was a moment when I might have told you this before, but we lived overseas for a while. We were in
Hmm.
Hong Kong for 4 years, and we traveled quite a bit while we were there, naturally, make the most of it. and we were in Thailand. And I got into a really nice hotel, got into the hotel elevator, and a hotel worker came in behind me,
Mm-hmm.
and something just felt funny at that moment.
Mm.
And I should have thought, don't press a button, don't press a button. But of course, I press my button. He doesn't. So the elevator goes up, and I'm just thinking, no, something feels funny. I don't know what, it feels wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
door opened. Again, if anyone's listening, go back down to the lobby. Don't leave,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I went and I hurried to my room and I locked the door. And there's in this hotel, and I don't know if it's maybe like an old fashioned kind of style, but there are these open boxes, almost like a cat door down at the
Mm-hmm.
bottom. Probably they
Mm-hmm.
were room service or for mail or
Right.
newspapers. It just, I'm not sure exactly why, but I actually kind of crouched down and I watched, and sure enough, he was going and peeking into all the different, and I thought, he's watching women. I mean, he's looking for either whether they're
Ugh.
dressing or whatever. Anyway, it all turned out okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was safe, but I did complain mightily to the hotel employer
Mm-hmm.
managers. But the point of the whole story is just that instinct, the alarm bells, the
Yep.
lights blinking,
Yep.
and we have to learn to listen to those because they are
Yeah.
really, really important.
They are. And it's interesting you say that too, because I was thinking about a trip me and my family took, or my family and I, me and my family and I.
Hey, we're
We'll
writers.
just we'll go with either. Yeah, and that's why I have editors. People are like,
Right?
"You're a writer, you should know this." I'm like, "No, that's what editors are for." Um, but we were in Columbus, Ohio as a family. I was going to a writers conference in Columbus, smack downtown, and we're trying to figure out our way around. And my husband pulled up to a stoplight, and I said, "Oh, there's my meeting spot right there across the street." And it's like kind of like a double lane of traffic, but it's not super busy. And I said, "Why don't I just get out here and I'll cross. There's a crosswalk. I'll be fine." And my husband's very protective. God love him. And he's like, "No, I don't know. I will get you to the door. I don't want you running across the road." And honestly, there was something in my head that just went, disobey. Like not that I'm like, obey your husband's blah blah.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was kind of like one of those things like I'm just gonna do it, like regardless of what he says, which is if you know my husband and I, he's very type A and I'm very, okay, I'll just trust you because my head's in the clouds. So without even thinking, I said, "No, I'm getting out. I'm gonna go. This is what I'm supposed to do." And I literally said, "This is what I'm supposed to do." And I grabbed my bag and he just looked at me kind of like, "You never do this. You never just do this." And I said, "Bye, everybody." And I got out right on the street and I crossed the road and he waved goodbye. And 3 minutes later, they were in a full-on car crash. And if I hadn't gotten out, he said I would have either been very, very injured or dead.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of those weird things where I'm like, I would never have, when he told me no, on a normal day, my normal gut would have been like, I trust him. He usually knows better. I'm just going to stay where I'm going to stay. And that day I was just like, I don't care what you say. I'm going to go. And it was just something inside me that just literally pushed me out of the car. And you think about those things and you're like, how much of that is instinct? How much of that is the Holy Spirit? And how often do we not listen to it or do we squelch that?
Oh,
You know?
that's the biggest question of all.
Right.
How can you really tune in and listen?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that you think every single moment is a moment to be feared.
No.
It's that idea that when you get that
Mm-hmm.
extra sense, and it's consistent with I think God's character. Usually, when
Yeah.
there's a warning, I think there's. I mean, I'm thinking someone's gonna get upset that you disobeyed your husband.
I
But
know. I was thinking I said that, or that I disobeyed him, or I
thank
said I'm not going to obey. I'm like, wow, that was really
I just
like old
read the
fashioned and weird.
letters.
But I know, I know.
Letters.
Wives obey your husbands. Yes, I know that. However, I did get a big smile when I hopped out of the car, so it wasn't complete belligerence and rebellion.
But it's meant for our goodness. It's meant for
It
our
is.
protection
Mhm.
and our safety and our well-being. And I think that's a wonderful
Yeah,
aspect, just being a person of faith that we
it
can
is. Yeah.
really work much more on. So,
Mm-hmm.
bringing it
Mm-hmm.
back to Bryn
Yes.
and her potential husband, I love that question is explored, just whether you're letting social mores, whether you're letting cultural bias make your choices, or are you really kind of cutting through all that to kind of let the Lord
Mhm.
guide day to
And
day?
I think it's important to do that too, because like you mentioned, cultural influences and just social influences and even the influences of families and peers and things like that can put such constraints on us. I was at a an event once, and this woman was just standing kind of by herself, and I felt such a nudge to go up and just say, "Hi, I'm Jamie. I just want to let you know everything's gonna be okay." And I'm like, why would I say something that's big? It's totally against all social norms to go up to a stranger and just say something random like that. And but I did. I was just like, you know what? It's not gonna cost me anything except maybe a weird look, right? And I went up and she started crying. And she gave me a hug and she said, I just needed to hear it was gonna be okay.
Mm.
And that was it. And it's another one of those instinct moments where you're just like, can we listen to all the influences around us telling us to hold back or to be within this little box? Or do we step out in faith and do we step out to journey on this adventure that God's potentially put before us? But then, like you said, when is it smart to do that? And when are you acting on impulse? So that's a huge question.
It is. It is. And I don't know if anybody knows how to answer that. And I'm not sure anyone should tell
Right,
you. It's really
right.
your
Mhm.
journey with God to kind of tune in. I almost think of it like a radio, like an old-fashioned transistor where you're,
Yeah.
static, and then it gets clear, and then there's static.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, exactly. I love that. Okay, so Bryn has this. Okay, I just think it's hilarious that you open it up with a Vegas wedding, first of all. I think
Yeah.
that's great. I just love that. I love that. And then she takes flight to Cape Cod. And so she's in Cape Cod, she's dealing with these questions. And now how does this ice cream cake wedding fit into the picture? Or is that a spoiler?
No, it's not a spoiler. It's actually kind of
Okay.
a secondary issue, but
Okay.
a family that owns the ice cream shop is helping their very good friend with his daughter's wedding. And it's one
Okay.
of the massive weddings, high destination,
Mm.
4th of July weekend. While I was writing this, so picture back a year ago, COVID knocked all the staff out. So the family stepping in, at the last minute to just help. And
Yep.
it's kind of a foodie series. Like if you are
Hmm.
into food, you're gonna
Right.
love, especially book two. And so here they are just like rallying, helping this wonderful man who's been such an influence in their lives since they've been on Cape Cod. And this young woman, Bryn, she's a civil engineer, and
Hmm.
that kind of personality,
Hmm.
she's also a baker. Like that's her circle.
Mm.
That's what she loves. That's probably what she wanted to do, but her family kind of pressed her to be more, for all the right reasons, be a
Hmm.
civil engineer kind of person. Sorry.
Right.
Mm. So she is the one who is making this cake, and it is a big deal. It's a very big deal. And especially when the bride, and there's a little bit of a ulterior motive of the bride's family where the they are really sticking it to the dad, and so they are having
Okay.
everything about as difficult as they possibly can for this wedding. So suddenly they want ice cream in the cake. It's not just enough to have a cake, it's ice cream cake. And it's a mini cake. It's mini ice cream. That's sort of the latest trend. I don't know if you knew that, but
No.
so each guest would be served like a tiny little cake.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's cool and cute. I
Unless you're the
kind of
cake.
like that. Right. Yeah. And unless it's filled with ice cream on the 4th of July. And this is probably an outdoor wedding too, if you wanted to make things difficult.
In the humidity of the Cape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's fun. I
So
mean, lighthearted, fun,
yes.
a lot of very amusing moments, but some really, I
Yeah.
like to write where you can get out of the book what you are wanting to get. You could have a
Mm-hmm.
light read. You
Mm-hmm.
could find some deeper things going on too, if
Right.
you care
Right.
to look for them.
Those
But
are
I,
so much fun.
I don't like to whack people on the head with the Bible. I feel
No.
like I like to invite people, I like to invite God into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's my delight with every book, is just let people
Yeah.
a little differently and open their minds a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's kind of how Jesus did his ministry too. Like, I mean, he had his moments, but so much of his ministry was just inviting people into conversation and relationship. And I think that's where our faith can be the most effective.
I like that.
Yeah. And I love that in story too, because like you said, you can read it for entertainment if you want, but yet sometimes that still small voice is still whispering something in your ear. And then at the end, you're like, oh, I actually really needed that, which is great. I love the ice cream cake theme too, because when I was a kid growing up, ice cream cakes were my birthday cake. That was all I ever had for birthday cakes. And my mom loved it because she didn't like to bake. And so we came up with this concoction where she would buy ice cream in a box, which I don't even know if they make anymore,
That
now
is
that I
a,
think of it.
I mean,
But
maybe,
remember when they used to come in boxes?
anyway, Jamie, yeah. Yeah.
I might be aging me. But anyway, she would get ice cream in a box and she would unwrap the box. So it was this square ice cream. And then she would cover it in Cool Whip. And so every birthday was literally the big moment when she cut in and I found out what my surprise birthday cake flavor was. And my dad would complain because it wasn't really birthday cake. And I was like, I don't care. I want a fun flavor covered in whipped cream.
That's so great. What a nice memory.
I know it was so much fun. I got so many different flavors, but I remember the one year I got Neapolitan ice cream, which was one of my favorites. And it was so pretty that we even had to stop and take pictures. And my dad's like, the cake is melting. Hurry up, because I have an August birthday. So your book's bringing back all the memories of the ice cream cakes. That's great. I love that. I love that.
Ice
So
cream, you
what's
said,
that?
ice cream is just everybody's favorite.
I think it is. I think it is. Yeah, it is. We'll say that. So what's next? I know you have a book coming out later this year, which we'll probably have another podcast about, talk about that, but
I have a couple things coming out this year and
okay.
fun. So one is actually starting to release now, and it's something I haven't done before, but I
Okay.
have loved it. And it's 4 novellas that are
Oh.
releasing, one in the spring, so one just released, summer,
Hmm.
fall. And when the winter one releases, a print edition will come out as well as the
Oh,
full.
neat.
So it's, it's novella, e-novellas, I guess I should say.
Hmm.
And there's a story that basically is about 3 young teenagers who work in a flower shop in the South. And they're best friends. They're mentored by the owner. Wonderful experience until one hot summer night when something dreadful happens in the store. And these 3 girls all hit the road 3 different directions. They're right at that
Okay.
college anyway.
Hmm. Hmm.
They vanish. And so each novella takes place 7 years later, and we go one by one. Each girl, 1, 2, 3.
Interesting.
Fourth book brings them back to the little town to face that dreadful moment.
Ooh.
Fun. And it's so much fun, Jamie, because each one has landed with flowers in another world. Like the very first one, she's in New York City working
Okay.
for high-end weddings, which was sort of
Hmm.
overlapped a little bit with the ice cream stories. The second one is you like this, she's in Savannah, Georgia,
Ooh.
little flower shop where ghosts run the town.
Oh,
It's,
I love it.
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
in. Ghosts.
lots and lots of supernatural things going
I
on,
love that.
which is true. There's even like there's even these open hearth, Cadillacs kind of a thing.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
They take people around on ghost tours at night and things like that.
Oh,
It's just very, very unique. Anyway, and then the third is a flower farm in Asheville, North Carolina. And that was so
neat.
fun too, to study this the start of a flower farm and flower
Yeah.
markets, the farmers markets and
Hmm. Hmm.
so I'm anyway, that's called,
Okay.
the whole series is called A Year in Flowers. If you
Oh,
got
okay.
the print edition, these covers, Jamie, are stunning, each one. And the fourth, or really the fifth in a way,
Hmm.
which is a print edition. They are just so beautiful. But each one is kind of set for the season. So
Okay.
they're different names. Like the first one is Apology in Bloom. They all have something to do with.
Mm.
Okay, put the flowers aside.
Okay.
Now I'm back to the Amish, and I have an Amish
Okay.
novel coming out in October, and that
Hmm.
is about a doctor who is part of the Amish community, but a full
Okay.
doctor, Western medical, And she's the kind of doctor we all wish we had. She's the one who makes house calls, the
Oh,
one
nice.
who cares a lot about the whole person, is
Yeah.
open to alternative medicine. She's not
Hmm.
very typical the Amish. So really love doing that. And I love the balance of the different genres because
It's
they
fun.
put you in a different world and it's
Yeah.
neat. I also think kind of like intuition, I think the whole concept of healing
Hmm.
is fascinating. Healing of the mind,
Hmm.
healing of the body. I think Jesus's examples throughout scripture,
Yeah,
that is so much of what he was doing through those little towns was
absolutely.
restoring people both physically and mentally, exercising demon after demon and bringing
Uh-huh.
back to community. And I
Yeah,
just love that. So that's kind of my model for what
I
kind
love
of,
it.
she is not perfect. She's not like Jesus, but perfect. And she is the kind of doctor you wish you had.
Yeah, yeah. And that sounds super exciting. I'm glad. And we get to talk about that one too later
Yes,
on this
we
year.
do.
So
I know
I'm
we do.
excited. I'm excited. This is so great. I love that you're coming out with all these different books and novellas and that they're all themed differently and kind of different genres, and yet they still have the same warm-hearted message of encouragement and faith interwoven in all of them so that readers can always expect to have that soft element of Christ-likeness, I guess, in the stories.
I think quirky characters. I
Hmm.
found filled with people who end up really rallying for each other.
Yeah.
And I think the faith message is really there. It's always it can
Hmm.
be stronger, I think, in the Amish books,
Hmm.
which is something I sort of appreciate
Right.
and kind of go a little deeper
Yeah.
with theology and things.
Hmm.
I do love what I do. I always feel every contract might be my last, so I better really just give it
I,
everything.
I totally relate to that. I totally relate to that. I think people are like, oh, well, you'll be doing this for the rest of your life. And I'm like, oh, no, every single contract is like a cross your fingers, hold your breath until it comes
Are
through.
hopeful.
I know. I know. So, oh, this is good. Well, this is fun. Okay, one last question about the novellas, though, the e-novellas. How do we get, if we're interested in those, how do we find out about those or get those?
Thank you for asking. So, well, they're on Amazon, they're on
Okay.
they're up. But I have done something a little different. One of my biggest focuses is my newsletter subscribership.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
so I have a newsletter that I send out, but I also started something in January called Friday's Uplift. And it
Ooh.
is a weekly kind of a little note to my readers, inviting dialogue and conversation, and it's not a pitch, it's not a hard sell. I mean, I will mention what's going on, but it's not
Yeah.
quite like that newsletter that comes out with a book
Right.
launch and, kind of a thing. And I expected people to unsubscribe. I gave a little option that I was going to try it for
Hmm.
months. Go ahead and unsubscribe, and you don't have to unsubscribe from everything.
Hmm.
But very few have, and I get so much reader response, just a question I'll put out there, and then I'm getting responses back, and I
So
love it
cool.
so much because readers are what makes this work. This is
Yeah.
the most wonderful part. I'm meeting people I never would have known all across the
Hmm.
country, even
Hmm.
countries, and I'm so thankful. I enjoy these people. I find
Yeah.
them enriched by their life. There's a lot of good people out there. The news
Hmm.
believe that, but there are. And
There really are. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
subscribing to my newsletters, to answer your question, is probably
Okay.
the way, and all the info comes. Um,
Okay.
you can manage it so it doesn't feel like it's a fire hose at you by any means.
Well, sometimes I find that author newsletters are like, especially the ones that come on a more regular basis, not just the once a month. It's the ones that are more regular now that almost seem to get a little bit more personal.
Mhm.
Because that once a month is more like here's the dump of everything that's happening. Wait till next month, another dump. But if you're getting them every so often or every few weeks or every week, it's like, oh, it's like our Friday afternoon coffee chat. Like, you
Yes.
know, and I like that. That's fun.
Yeah, I like it too. I have a very big family, and
Okay.
I'm sensitive and respectful of not necessarily sharing their information on mine. But
Right.
when I can, and when it's okay, and I have permission,
Uh-huh.
that's how I do like to
Hmm.
send out pictures and things like that. But it's funny because with a big family, you have a lot of grit for the oyster, but
Oh, I
alas.
bet.
Alas, it is not my story to tell.
It's not your story to tell, no, but it can inspire stories, maybe.
Yeah, change the names.
Yes, change names, places. This is
Yeah,
not after any specific individual, but
Jenny Jane.
yes, exactly. Well, Suzanne, this is great. It was super fun to chat, and we were talking about Love on a Whim, which is out. Is it out now?
It's coming out in just a couple weeks, May 7th.
May 7th. Okay, that's right. I knew it was like either out or just coming out. And it's the third book and the final book in the series. And if you love ice cream and you love Cape Cod and you love heartwarming and romance and quirky characters and all that, it's the book for you.
Thank
Just
you.
going to say it. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. And then we will see you again as we get closer to your October release.
Thanks, Jamie. I appreciate it so much.